Hello everyone,
Welcome to Disability Viewpoints.
Zippity Zoo Day is all about getting people together who use communication devices.
We're trying to get the entire community of people who care about civic engagement.
We are at the St. Paul River Center for the stationary bike races.
This wheelchair that I'm sitting in, it's called an iBot.
Jake having the courage to get up on stage and perform.
This is a tabletop portable video magnifier.
Hello, I'm Mark Hughes. Welcome to this edition of Disability Viewpoints. With me is Nick Wilkie from Minnesota Center for Independent Living. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Good to see you again, Mark.
Tell us what your role is at the Minnesota Center for Independent Living and what you do.
Well, I've been working for MCIL for the last 5 years. I work there as a transition specialist, where I outreach with youth in the metropolitan community.
Wow. And the metropolitan community means the 7-county metropolitan area or a little bit beyond?
Well, there are several gray areas that we venture into, but I pretty much stay down in the metro.
Okay, and how do you connect with the youth in the metro area? What is your specialty?
Well, in the last few years, I've specialized by stationing myself in the actual transition programs so that I can build relationships with those young people so that when they do need help, I'm able to facilitate relationships, possibly make referrals to other resources, and overall make sure they're trying to reach the goals that they want to get to.
If you could give our audience at home a definition of Minnesota Center for Independent Living, they could figure it out if you said Minnesota Center for Independent Living, but what does it mean to you?
To me, it means young people being able to find the resources that they need to be successful.
Right.
We pride ourselves on our ability to help individuals by eliminating the barriers around them.
Okay. And what are the costs for your services that you just discussed in the question prior?
That's the other great thing too, Mark, is that 100% of everything we do is absolutely free.
And I know that at MCIL you've gotten into employment type of stuff, right?
A little bit. But sometimes one of the biggest priorities that youth run into when they start to have interactions with the schools or interactions with us is employment is a big piece of that.
Absolutely.
When it comes to specializing in employment, we try to make a referral to an appropriate employment agency like the state. I have several vocational rehabilitation counselors that I will make calls to when I need help in that regard, and I can point young people in the right directions too.
Great. Well, we need you. You're an important piece to all this puzzle out here. I understand that the MCIL, or Minnesota Center for Independent Living, is one of several disability-related organizations planning a celebration for the 22nd anniversary of the passing of the Americans with Disabilities Act. What is the Americans with Disabilities Act, which was passed on July 26, 1990 by George H. Bush, President Bush?
The Americans with Disabilities Act is civil rights legislation that provides a lot of different accommodations and also meets the needs of many employers out there.
Okay. And how has the employment for people with disabilities improved? And that's a hard question in this unstable economy we've had for the last 3-4 years.
Well, I think some of the ways that it's improved is now employees, because of the ADA, employees with disabilities have certain rights related to employment.
Can you name a couple?
Yeah. If they disclose their disability to their employer, that disclosure is confidential. The employer cannot share that with anyone. The employer is also required to make certain reasonable accommodations related to the specific job functions for the employee.
And that's been a big step. That has been a really big step. Yeah.
That's been really huge.
Absolutely. What improvements have been made so that people with disabilities can access services and businesses as a whole? Well, be they employment or personal services rendered?
A couple things that I can mention related to that are certain like lodging and hotels and that kind of thing now have to have the ability to make reservations completely accessible online. Okay. Once an individual with a disability makes a reservation, the place of lodging or the hotel is then required to honor that reservation, so that they can't give their room away to another patron.
Right. And that's a big plus right there.
Definitely.
What can someone do when they encounter a barrier to a service? And this was a concern that I had when the light rail was coming down University Avenue, because they went from 1,175 parking spaces to about 175 parking spaces, and that narrows the disability parking, and so they moved a lot of it to the back and had to redo entrances and access and lighting and all that. And so when somebody comes across something that's not accessible, what can they do?
Well, I would say the first thing that they could do is, there are a number of different local organizations that can help with direction for that. MCIL, the company I work for, is one of them. They can also contact the MISCAD.
Minnesota State Council on Disabilities.
Thank you for the acronym.
I'm very humbly speaking, I happen to be a board member there.
They can also contact ADA Minnesota.
Right.
They can also contact the EEOC.
Right, which is Equal Employment Opportunity in Washington, D.C. Well, both here in Minnesota and Washington, D.C.
And then, if I didn't say it already, they can also contact the Minnesota Disability Law Center.
There you go.
And one of the things that I wanted to share with regard to where you could go, Mark, is a story that happened 2 years ago.
Okay. This is your story?
No, this isn't my story, but this is about a young person that I was working with at the time.
Okay.
Individual wanted to go to a local community college. We were able to connect him to tour that community college. Once he got there, he visited the Disability Services Office, where he expressed the need for a certain accommodation in the classroom. He needed someone to come into the classroom and physically take his items out of his bag, put them on the table so he could get set up his computer and that kind of thing. Seems pretty reasonable.
Yeah. Personal care attendant type stuff?
A little bit. Not as involved as a PCA might be.
Okay.
But the school came back at him and said that they couldn't provide that accommodation.
Really?
When he was presented with that information, he came back to me and he asked, what should he do? And I said, well, the first thing that I would do is contact the Minnesota Disability Law Center.
Absolutely.
Through that, Mark, he wrote a letter to the Law Center. The Law Center
It's a human rights issue.
The Law Center then wrote a letter to the school. I'm happy to tell you he's now fully enrolled at the school. They completely changed their policy related to accommodations in the classroom.
And said they're sorry 10 times over.
I'm sure. I don't know how many times, but
good for him.
He's in a good spot and he's doing what he wants to do, which is really, really what just is a great feeling for that young man. And I feel fortunate to have been involved in a small way too.
Well, thanks to you there, Nick. Why is it important to celebrate the anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act? And I think you just explained it, but in your own words, tell us more about it.
Well, I think it's really important to reflect on where we've been. Know that there were a lot of people that worked really, really hard to get this legislation passed 22 years ago. And I'm really hoping that young people will take advantage of this opportunity to come out and learn more about the ADA, because it's those young people that are going to need to carry the mission of striving to do more.
When and where is the celebration, and who is the audience for the ADA celebration?
The actual celebration is going to be on July 26th from 1 to 3:30. It's going to be at the University of Minnesota. It's going to be at the Urban Research and Outreach Engagement Center.
Okay.
And that is on Plymouth Avenue North in Minneapolis.
Okay, on the north side of Minneapolis, okay?
Yep.
Nick, why is it important for the youth to get involved in the ADA celebration?
As I mentioned before, Mark, I think it's really important for young people to be engaged in not only where we've been, but also where we're going in terms of disability rights and different kinds of legislation. I think our event on the 26th will give them an excellent opportunity to discover more about what they might not know about the ADA and also engage with the rest of the community in what proves to be a great celebration.
Who is sponsoring the event this year?
It's being sponsored by a number of different local nonprofits, and I would list them all, but I'd be afraid of forgetting one.
Okay. All right. Who are the main sponsors?
I believe the main sponsors would be ADA Minnesota, and then the MISCOT.
Okay, good. Tell us a little bit about the special agenda for July 26th, 2012.
Well, we have a number of different speakers lined up. We will have a full agenda for that day. There's going to be a motivational piece. There's going to be
We all need motivation.
Yep. There's going to be a lot of regular information coming out about some of the changes with the ADA, what some of those have been over the last year, and kind of a good outlook for where we're going.
Okay. Nick Wilkie, can you tell us how to contact the fine folks for the ADA celebration?
Definitely. The person you'll want to contact is Cindy Tarshish. She can be reached at 651-603-2015. That's 651-603-2015.
Got that one.
And you could also reach me at 651-603-2018.
Okay, one more time.
651-603-2018.
Okay.
And then our website for MCIL is www.mcil-mn.org.
Okay, one more time.
www.mcil-mn.org.
And you had one for ADA too, right?
Yep, one more for the ADA. Any information that they're looking for regarding the ADA, they can go to ada.gov. That's ada.gov.
And I'm sure they have all types of different formats for the people that need those. And Ani Simons is coming up next with the legislative report. Stay tuned.
Hello everyone, I'm Ani Simons. I'm back today with your legislative update, and this will actually be the last legislative update of the 2012 session because session did wrap up in May. We were lucky to see that it ended on time this year, unlike last year. And very soon after the legislative session ended, most legislators quickly returned back to their home districts because, as you all know, this fall, all 201 of our state legislators are up for election. So lots of folks scrambled back home to start campaigning. But just as a lot of state elected officials went home to refocus on the campaign, we in the disability community then started really rolling up our sleeves and analyzing a lot of the legislation that passed this last session that impacted the disability community. There was quite a bit. And what I'm going to do tonight is I'll talk very briefly about a lot of different provisions that passed that impact the disability community. I'm not going to go into detail about all of them, but if you hear of one that you're particularly interested in that you think might impact you or someone you know, there's a lot of resources out there. Certainly contact any disability organization that you're already affiliated with, and also feel free to visit the website of the organization I work with, the Consortium for Citizens with Disabilities, where we go into a lot of detail about some of these various provisions. That website very quickly is mnccd.org. Again, mnccd.org. So with that, very quickly, what passed this session? So first of all, this session we saw for the first time, the legislature passed proposed constitutional amendments, which means they put on the ballot this fall some questions that they're going to ask voters to vote on. One of those questions, if it does pass, will impact the disability community. It's something we've talked about many times on our legislative updates, the notion that folks who go to the polls would need to present a photo ID before they could access their ballot. So we will indeed be voting on that this fall. Other pieces that passed this session that will impact the disability community included a delay of a 20% wage cut to relatives who provide PCA services or personal care attendant services to folks that they're related to. I know we talked about that a lot this year. We were hoping to repeal that cut. Ultimately, we were able to delay it for about a year. And we will come back next session and work hard to try to repeal that cut completely. Other changes to disability services that passed this session included some changes to the Medical Assistance for Employed Persons with Disabilities program. Again, we've talked about that before, but in the final hours, we were able to pass legislation that gets rid of the age limit on that program, so folks can stay in that work incentive program for as long as they'd like, and also protect some of the savings that people accumulate when they are on that program. So those were two positive changes. Another positive change from this past session was that a wonderful resource for the disability community, the Minnesota State Council on Disability, because of legislation passed last year, had to undergo kind of a review process to make sure that it wasn't duplicating services, that it really did need to exist and served a great purpose for the state. They successfully completed that review, and now they won't have to undergo that again for another 6 years. But that was another success. Other positives from this past legislative session, last year, a 1.67% cut to providers of disability services was passed as part of the final budget agreement. This past session, the organization I work with, along with a lot of other disability organizations, were successful in at least delaying that cut. Similar to the cut to PCA services, we hope to come back this session and repeal that cut completely, but we at least bought ourselves some time in that it will not be implemented this summer as was originally planned. Other changes passed this session included a provision that allows folks to look for more voluntary ways to close beds in group homes. You all may recall that last year, as a part of budget saving measures, legislation was passed that basically mandated certain beds in group homes be closed. That was very concerning for a lot of people in the disability community just because of how it would destabilize some folks' lives. So we were able to get legislation passed this year that at least says, let's try to work together, find areas where it makes sense to close group home beds, where it's a voluntary process as opposed to this mandatory process. If we're not able to achieve the savings that we need to by the voluntary bed closures in group homes, there will be some mandated bed closure, but we made a bad provision a little less bad, I would say, this session. Other changes passed this session included the fact that there's a lot of annual reports that are done about the services that the state of Minnesota provides, and there was some legislation passed this session that really heightens the attention to disability services in those reports, which will be great for the disability advocacy community. We'll have a lot more data on what services are working, what services could we make improvements for in the disability community. There was also legislation passed this session that calls on a Health Services Advisory Council, which advises the government on health issues to look a lot more closely at various treatments for folks with autism. That's an issue that a lot of us are trying to learn quite a bit about, and we were glad to see that legislation passed that calls more attention to that important issue. There was also changes passed this session that help prepare everyone in the disability community for MIN Choices. You all may be aware that MIN Choices is the new comprehensive assessment that's coming to Minnesota that's going to replace a lot of the current various assessments that are done to determine if someone is eligible for certain disability services. Those are kind of all going to be combined into this one new assessment, and there had to be some legislative changes made so we could move forward with that. There was changes made through legislation this year to case management, really looking at how can we separate the administrative side of case management services from the actual service provision side of case management. So some positive changes were made there. There was some changes made this session that really look at down the road, when we have to make changes to how we pay for disability services. I think I've mentioned in these updates before that the federal government has told Minnesota we need to have a different system for how we determine what we pay for various disability services. So there was some legislation passed this session that really lays out a plan for how we're going to do that. Some other changes made this session call for a study of various models of housing with supports for individuals with autism. In a lot of other states, there's more kind of campus type settings for folks with autism. We in Minnesota aren't exactly sure what direction we're going to go, but as I mentioned before, everyone is aware that autism and the services we provide to folks with autism is an area where we really need to step up the work that we're doing, and so there'll be a study done on what our options are. Other changes made this session included some funding for self-advocacy, which is a wonderful program that helps folks with disabilities to advocate for their needs. So a couple other changes in addition to that, but all of this information can be found on the CCD website along with a lot more detail. And I just want to wrap up quickly by saying that a lot of the positive changes that we were able to achieve this session were due to the grassroots action and advocacy of the disability community. So thanks to all of you who participated in that, and we look forward to working with you again during the 2013 legislative session. Thanks so much for joining us tonight for the legislative update, and I'll be back again this year with other news and information.
Hi, my name is Sherry Melander-Smith, and you're watching Living Forward. The goal of Living Forward is to talk about issues that help people with disabilities live the very best life possible. I'm very excited for today's show because on today's show I have with me Alyssa Carlson. Welcome, Alyssa.
Thanks
so nice to have you.
much.
Alyssa's going to be helping me co-host today as she's a budding journalist, and she's here to talk about her relationship and her building of the foundation for the Youth Legacy Foundation. So welcome.
Thanks so much. I'm Alyssa Carlson. Today we have with us Bridget Siljander and Imani Cruzen, the founders of the Youth Legacy Foundation. I first heard about the Youth Legacy Foundation when I met Bridget on this show. She asked me back in November to be on the board of directors for it. Could you tell us how you thought of the foundation?
Absolutely. Well, I thought about the foundation. The idea actually came from my daughter, Imani, because I've been a longtime disability advocate and I've just included her in a lot of activities. So she has come with me to Days at the Capitol. She's written to officials, and I felt like this was a really good experience for her. And she started to understand what was happening in the bigger societal picture and in our political system. And I want her to be empowered and engaged. And Imani has also been volunteering through her church. She's found that to be very rewarding, and it's so wonderful to be needed. So she has spent time working with Hammer, with Feed My Starving Children. She's also gone over to the Interfaith Outreach Center, where she's helped our friends and neighbors in need at the food shelf. And so she's already a community leader in her own right, and she already has a legacy at 14 years old.
What kind of activities have you already done for the foundation?
Well, we had a kickoff activity on February 18th, and we attended the Hands on Twin Cities Volunteer Expo, and it was basically a learning expedition where we went to visit booths of various organizations to find out about volunteer opportunities. And that was very exciting because we discovered a lot about what was available to us. And we actually had a chance to meet U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar.
Oh, wow.
And we had a group picture with her and talked to her a little bit about the Youth Legacy Foundation.
Wonderful.
Very
Great.
first activity and met a senator.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any upcoming activities planned for the foundation?
You bet we do. We have an event happening on July 28th from 11 to 6. And we're very excited about that. It'll be an opportunity for networking. We'll have a chance for youth to connect with each other and for people to connect with youth with disabilities. And we'll have a presentation from the Pageant of Hope, and we'll have a pizza party. We're hoping that a variety of stakeholders from the community will come and join us to celebrate youth building their legacies and disability pride and independence.
Wonderful.
That is wonderful. Do you guys have any sort of way to contact
Well, we have our website, which is very basic, but it has an email address that folks can use to get in touch with us. It's youthlegacyfoundation.org. And we also have a Facebook page, the Youth Legacy Foundation. You can like us, and you can also send us an email at info@youthlegacyfoundation.org.
So can you say that again? It's
www.youthlegacyfoundation.org.
Youthlegacyfoundation, the whole word, .org.
Yep.
Okay.
Bridget, could you tell us more about your vision for the foundation?
Absolutely. Well, the mission of the Youth Legacy Foundation is to engage youth in humanitarian, charitable, and service activities so they can build their legacies in the community. And the vision of the Youth Legacy Foundation is to have young people engaging in different activities in the community based on their passion. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Really nice. So Imani, I know you've been involved with this project, obviously from the beginning. What has it been like for you to share your experience with disability with the community at large?
Well, I really enjoyed showing my disability pride and seeing how it inspires other people to be proud of who they are, whether they have a disability or not. And I really enjoyed just getting out and helping my community too, and seeing how it makes their day and makes my day a little bit too.
Wonderful. Congratulations to both of you, to all three of you, for participating in the Youth Legacy Foundation. You know, you're just beginning with the grassroots effort now, but this could grow and become a national program, and you heard it here first, folks. So we're so glad to have you on. So thank you so much. And Alyssa, you did an awesome job.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. I will be back next month when I'll be doing my final show. Sadly enough, I'm going to be leaving Living Forward, but coming back intermittently to share some news and some insights with you. But be sure to join me next month because it should be really fun talking about some of my best and favorite shows. So thank you so much for watching. Have a good day, everybody. See you next time. Bye-bye for now.
We'd like to thank our special guest, Nick Wilkie, and Ani Simons for the legislative report, and we hope you enjoyed the Living Forward segment. I'm Mark Hughes. Thanks for watching Disability Viewpoints, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.
And we idolize our heroes and worship paintings on the wall. So why not love each other and care what happens to